This is an excellent question to ask. So I have the luxury of actually doing this job before, so it really made quoting for me pretty easy because I've already done all the trimming for this. So this particular job was this one very large holly here, and then I had 2 Yaupon hollies off to the side. You can see in another video. And I had 2 crepe myrtles, which you can kind of see in this one peeking out over the edge there. It wasn't a topping. It was just really just to clean up on it, to clean up any of the kind of lateral branches or anything that was cross-intersecting. So this goes back to a video that I talked about a few days back of me in front of a whiteboard. It didn't do well on views, but it did talk about how I go about doing pricing. And I use basically a simple formula that is that all of my costs plus the profit that I want to make equal my price. And that's kind of a very oversimplified kind of way to look at it, because there's a lot that theory that kind of goes into that. And that really touches on to another point that I wanted to make, and it's really has to do with time. So what I have done is I figured out all of my costs. I've been in business for over 10 years. I know what my costs are from year to year. I know what my fixed and variable costs are. I know what my costs are when I do like a landscaping project. Those are, cost of goods sold or variable costs that go into a particular job. So I'm very familiar with all of those kinds of costs. And so that I can kind of compute out, I understand about what something costs me per hour of operation. So I have kind of like a baseline number that I know that's in my head. So I know that I need to make per hour more than that when I quote a job. And so when I look at a job, I want to know time. So what that really means is I've got to be really good about judging time. So if this is something you haven't done before, a job that you haven't done before, it's harder to do that. However, you can just kind of try to use your experience to do that. But I think the most important part of figuring all of this out is that if you've never timed yourself working, that is the first step that I would do. I didn't do that for like 8 years, and it really opened up my eyes the first time I set and timed jobs. I think I took for a month one time. I just timed everything I did, and I broke things down into sections. Sometimes I would time could I with an edge 1,000 linear feet? How long does that take? When I mow lawns, what was my average time per day on lawns, and then figure out what's the square footage so how long does it take me to mow 1,000 square feet or 100 square feet or whatever that is. And it helps me with pricing. That really helped me figure out are my lawns priced right? Are my jobs priced right? Because I now know what my measurements are. So for lawns, for example, and I needed to go back and do a measurement again this year, a time study again this year. I plan to do that. But for most of my lawns, my average time's about 25 minutes. Now there's several that are more, and there's several that are less, but my average time on a lawn for mowing, for example, is 25 minutes. My median time on lawns, though, is 18 minutes. So that I have a bunch of small properties that I throw a zero turn on, like a stander on, and I can edge and just mow edge blow really quickly, and they're close proximity. That's something I can do 2.5 an hour with the drive time. So that makes pricing a lawn, for example, pretty easy when you know what your time is. Definitely an eye-opener. I realized there were things I was taking way too much time on. Once I figured out how much time it took me to mow, for example, mow a lawn. I'm using mowing, but shrub trimming was what you're asking about. Once I kind of figured out that how much time it took me to mow a certain square footage, and then I compared that with the square footage, then I compared that with pricing, I found out a lot of my pricing was off on a lot of lawns, and I've been over the last few years really correcting that, for example. So going back to this, I know I had this one big giant holly here, and then I had 2 Yaupon hollies, and I had 2 crepe myrtles. That's a 30-minute job, and that's what I quoted for on this. Plus there's a little bit of a disposal fee. I had 2 bags and then just a good bundle of sticks that I needed to dispose for. However, this customer is lucky. I kind of gave them a break on the disposal. I already had a run that I needed to take to the dump, so this really didn't add virtually anything to that run. So my cost to the run is still the same. It doesn't change that price. So I did give them a little price break on that. So the all-up question really has to be, well, what did I charge for this? I took 30 minutes. It took me like 35 minutes, but I was recording it. Probably would have taken me 30 minutes if I wasn't setting up a camera and doing things like that. I have something like 20-ish minutes of actual recording. I didn't record myself doing any of the cleanup or any of the crepe myrtle trimming. So like I said, about 35 minutes, maybe 40 minutes, maybe, but I don't think I was spent that long there at all. I know it was pretty closer to 30 minutes. So the price that I charged for this job was $90. And so I'm pricing a 30-minute job plus disposal for $90. You're looking at about $180 per hour, which is a little over. My kind of goal where I'm actually kind of target is about $120 an hour when I'm trying to think of doing things. So when I'm pricing, I know what my costs are. I know that my costs and the price of the job. So I subtract the average hourly cost that takes me to run my business minus the hour for the job that I would do, like the hour of time. And then, I have, something like, like if it's priced at $120 an hour, I'm making like, $60, maybe $75 or something like that in that ballpark, profit per hour. That's not every job. I'm still not as good about it as I could be. I could still tighten it up quite a bit. There's some jobs, there's some days where I'm looking at the hours and I'm like, oh wow, I averaged $50 an hour. I'm like, I'm barely breaking even, if that. Once you figure all the insurance and all the utilities and all the things it takes me to run my business, there's some days that run like that. And there's other days, like for spray and weed control, I might be making $200 an hour, and I do have some additional costs with that because of the spray and things like that. But those days are better, and it does vary. So one bad day shouldn't set you off, but it should just be kind of like something that helps you target where you need to adjust your pricing. Maybe my shrub trimming pricing is good, but maybe my mowing pricing is bad, or maybe my weed control pricing is really good, and my shrub trimming pricing is bad, or whatever the case may be. But I think the whole point of this was really to time yourself, understand what your costs are all up of your business, figure out how many hours you work per year. Is that a 40-hour week? Not me. The summertime, I'm working 60 hours easily. And then this time of year, February, I'm working about 25 or 30 maybe. So I just basically take all of my actual work hours, not my admin hours, not my supply run hours, but my actual business hours when I go pick up my trailer, when I go to the job site, when I get done with the job site and I put the trailer up. From that kind of time, I track all of that throughout the year, and I figure out about how many hours I work. I figure out all of my costs from the year, and I have a set cost price that I can base off of. I need to make something like $55-$60 an hour or something like that to cover costs, and then you price accordingly after that. And that, the costs include my payroll. I pay myself. Those types of things. I'm talking about business profit. Now, I do enjoy that business profit. That's my profit. But, I do look at it as if I'm an employee of my own company, and that profit is going towards the business for the business owner, which I also happen to be. It's just I get to double dip there. But if I was hiring somebody else to do the same kind of work, I have to consider that. I know this was a long explanation. If you have any questions, let me know. I appreciate the feedback. You can comment or message me personally. Thanks for the question.